saying that they like my style. Wanna know how I do it? I smile. While you were out there saying hey, hi, hello, I was getting dressed up in shades of yellow.
Hello.
Hi Leah, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Not bad. Let's just have a little celebration of getting to episode 10 of the podcast.
Ooh, double digits.
I know, right? And yes, so I think it's quite good because even you just said that you'd been quite quiet last week, work-wise. Why do you think that was?
Well, let's introduce ourselves quickly first.
Okay,
And then
yeah, all right.
and then because we start with the intro. So who are you?
My name's Emma. I'm the MD of Miss Bush, and you are?
And I'm Leah, Spicer-Pownall, and I'm the marketing manager of Miss Bush. And this is the
Lovely Job podcast. So named because bridal is a lovely job.
Yes, it is a lovely job. Okay, yes. So yeah, followers of Miss Bush will probably notice there were only 2 posts on our Instagram grid last week, which is very unusual. Because I had a couple of days off the week before, and being self-employed and freelance, sometimes it can be a bit harder to motivate yourself. And I kind of fell out of my flow last week. I did quite a bit of behind the scenes stuff, but I just kind of, fell off the wagon a little bit last week. But back this week, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, no, but it is quite tricky though. I mean, I would equate it for me being ill for like now. I'm still like don't sound right, and I'm still coughing and everything. And so I haven't been to the gym or done yoga or been for a run in, oh God, it must be coming up to really like almost a month. And I just haven't had the energy or the physical capacity to do it. And I just am dreading it. I'm going to be so bad, so unfit. Luckily, my mental health hasn't taken a bit of a battering, but I know what you mean. When you get out of your routine, it's just so hard to get back into it. And I think that probably a lot of people that listen to the podcast are either in the industry or self-employed, or I would imagine there's quite a lot of women listening more than men. And I think that your eye can get taken off the ball so easily. I think with your work-life balance, mine has been like working Sundays, which we've had to do. But it was so weird to work Friday, then not work Saturday this week, and then go to work on a Sunday. Like my week just didn't even feel like my week.
No, what day is it?
I know. And I don't feel like, because I've spent all my life working in retail, Saturdays are a really peculiar day to me. They feel quite discombobulating. I'm used to having a day off when there's no one around. It's people. Ooh. So I totally get it. And I've always said, I think to you, this sounds a bit rude actually, but I just sent you a really, really dull reel from a competitor. And I was like, So I do feel that even you on a bad day or on a bad week is still better than our competitors. That's quite evil, right?
Oh, yeah, it is true. The reel you sent me out was just like, I've just woken up. Are you trying to send me back to sleep?
No, it was really, really boring, wasn't it? So, I mean, I feel like it's quite a mean thing. I mean, we all use Instagram quite consistently also as a sort of almost as a weather vane or a sort of thermometer of how we're doing. So I think if you go quiet on there, everyone's like, But this is why I'm going to ask you the question, because you had a peeve last week about somebody blaming Instagram for something, didn't you?
I did, yeah. But can I just say before, just, if that sounded mean, what we said about that reel, if you're listening to that and you think, oh, maybe that was me, then just think to yourself, before you put something out, is this going to entertain my clients? Is it going to is it useful information? Is it quality content? And if you're doing that and you think actually no, then maybe don't put it out. Sometimes it's better to just not put anything out than to put something out that's just kind of lackluster. Yeah, that sounds a bit mean, but again, just think about what you're putting out before you put it out. I think
that's important. Do you remember years ago when we went to that digital marketing conference and somebody said if you put boring stuff, if you bore your clients or you steal time from them with a boring email or a boring something, then they
Yeah.
actually begin to slightly resent you. So I
Yeah.
think it's quite good
That's true.
advice.
That you are taking up someone's time from their day, and you want to make sure it's quality time.
So yeah, so and also that's apparently as well, like people apparently like of the algorithm, if we are to believe it, sort of prioritizes things that have either been saved or shared or in some way passed on to another user. But the thing is quite often the things that I share, save, or pass on are the things that I'm most critical of. So I feel that might be bad for people because they'll be like, oh, look, this has had that
It's
many
doing
watches.
well.
It's just, I can believe how unbelievably bad it was.
Oh no.
I know that's
But yeah,
bad, isn't it?
the thing I wanted to kind of, it wasn't to rant about. Well, not really rant, but kind of, it's hopefully going to be helpful for people. So they'd posted that they were closing their business, which is obviously very sad that someone's closing their business. And they blamed a few things. One of the things that they blamed was Instagram, the Instagram algorithm. And I saw that and I just thought, oh, that's a shame that they're blaming Instagram, because it shows that they were kind of putting all their eggs in one basket. If you're blaming Instagram for your business closing, then you're probably missing out on lots of other things that you could have been doing. I've always said to people, and I've always said this to you as well, we can't rely on just Instagram for the business. You have to have lots of other things going on: email marketing, Pinterest, the website, creating content that's interesting, like we just said, blog posts, evergreen content that's always going to be interesting and helpful for people. So yeah, I saw that and I just thought, oh, that's a shame, because it means you probably were just putting all your eggs in one basket and hoping Instagram was going to get you all your business, but it won't, sadly.
I would also say that one of the things that I find, and this is impossible to cultivate unless you just stay in business a long time, is word of mouth recommendation, because so many of our clients come in, and I think particularly mums,
Yeah.
of being like, oh, all my friends' daughters have been here, So I think that I think that native verbal sort of like analog referral system, I think is still so important. And I would also say about the business that closed or was closing, is they ignored us. I asked if I could like be a stockist, and they just blanked us. And I think because the industry can be quite partisan. So I would also say that it's very useful for third-party suppliers to go cultivate relationships across the industry that are based on sensible, friendly relationships. And I was listening to the podcast, The Investors Politics, on the way home from work yesterday, and they were talking about how I was catching up on the like Trump win, and so they were talking about how to have a relationship with Trump when you previously called him a fascist, or something. But basically, I would say it would be the same thing. Like there's I've been turned down. I'm going to put this out there publicly because it's not a secret. I've been turned down by the Most Curious Wedding Fair team because that I wasn't cool or alternative or edgy enough. It's like, God damn, I think I am. But basically, your view of me is one that's quite limited. And so it's one of those things that I think also, if you're going to like be a small artisan within the industry, like I think it's even if you don't like me, you got to treat me like Trump. You've got to go and have a relationship with someone. Do you know what I mean? Even if you think their politics don't match yours, because you
Yeah.
can't not.
At the very least, send an email and just say, oh, it's not for me, but thank you so much for asking. I guess it just kind of shows that their customer service might not have been so great. Like, at least an email back would have been
Yeah,
nice.
but like treat me like Trump. Yeah, I feel like that's a bad analogy, but do you know what I mean? I think it's really important in the industry to be friends with everyone, and we've got like I've got a very small networking group, or couple of networking groups, and some of them have like run very different types of boutiques to us. But I think it's still important to understand across the industry what everybody's doing and feeling, and and actually to sort of like maybe tie yourself into a specific group of clients, and
Yeah.
not be a bit broader is can quite be limiting.
Yeah. And also back to Instagram, just to say, recently there's been times when Instagram's gone down and it's been down for hours and people have been panicking. They've been like, this is my whole business. How am I going to get business now? And that's just a reminder, you can't rely on it. You need your own space on the internet that's all yours, and you need your own content that's not going to go anywhere. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful to people, to remind them that, there's more to business than Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, way more, way more actually, as I say, showing up and actually, showing up, and the way you show up in your own shop, I think, is really important as well on your own.
Yeah.
You can't be uber cool in one space and then not in the other.
No.
And as I say, referring back to the dull content, I know that person isn't dull, and yet that content was dull. So
it's true.
so you've got to show up with a personality, even if it might, not be everyone's cup of tea. Clearly, like me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that aside, so yes, this week is going to be a flurry of activity on all our channels, Leah.
It is. It definitely is. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, it just shows we can go a week where I only post a couple of things and we're fine, because I was doing other stuff behind the scenes. Like I did do some work on the website, I did some little bits here and there, did some writing. So it just kind of shows that's not all we're doing.
Oh, lovely, thank you. Marshy's just brought me a cup of tea.
Oh, lovely,
Yes.
lovely, Marshy.
Just because he basically used all the milk in mashed potato for our shepherd's pie that was waiting for me when I got home last night. And there was I had to eke out 1 cup of tea each with, like a little tiny dribble of milk. So,
well, that's not going to happen to me today, because Joe is currently downstairs, my husband Joe, with a possibly broken foot. He's going to the doctor's at lunchtime because he fell over at squash. He was playing squash with his brother. Yes,
oh my
and he
God.
fell over.
I think that's, the thing is though, which is like, good to know that he's playing squash, but bad to probably, because he'll be like, that's it, I'm never coming away from actual virtual gaming ever again.
No, he has played squash regularly for a few years now. Like he plays most Saturdays, yeah. But he's very competitive, and he just threw himself across the room and landed on his foot. And I shouldn't laugh because he actually has really hurt himself, but just the image of him just throwing himself is quite funny to me. Anyway, right, back to your list. You have got...
No, I think I'm just going to just give a little shout out to Freya Rose, because I went to her ball on Friday evening, which is why I took Saturday off, because I thought I might have a hangover, and I did. So it was did you know the Prince's Trust has now been renamed the King's Trust? I did not know that, but
I didn't know that.
I think she was supported to set up her business by the Prince's Trust, which interestingly, so was Suzanne Neville. So, so this was a fundraiser for something called Save a Girl's Life, Change a Girl's Life. Anyway, that. So and she has done really well at fundraising. The most exciting thing is my cool dress, though.
That did cause quite a stir on Instagram stories.
Yes, it was great. So, so my cool dress, which is one of those H&M collaborations, using now actually the designers that's on the back of the dress, I actually will put that in the show notes, because they're two very cool American designers that do a lot of upcycling and customization of denim, and they'd obviously use the basket, whatever, writing, and then obviously Ben had maybe the most awesome set of sleeves to go with it by cutting up a pair of black Primark jeans, painting them with matching text, and then Adrian sewed them into the dress. So I ended up with very Miss Bush Bride kind of energy, but having custom cool sleeves sewed into a sleeveless dress. So yeah, it was, and super exciting. The local MP was there, Stephen Morgan, and so I was introduced to him by a girl called Lou, who runs a big Instagram thing called Love Southsea, which is very good if you ever want to go to Southsea and find out where's cool to go to. So she introduced me to him, and then as I was walking back to the bar and he was walking past me, he went, "That is a really cool dress." I was like, yes, I'm a hit. I'm a hit with hot young Labour MP. Yes, go. My life is made. And
Oh,
his office is just a stone's throw from my house as well. I'll be like there, like, hello, can I hand out some
knocking on his
leaflets
door.
for you? May I be of assistance? Yeah.
Love it.
So yes, that was good. So, uh, so yeah, that's my week basically. Oh, and I had my ears pierced again. So Leah said to me, "I
Oh,
wonder why we were following a piercer." I was like, "Yes," and people, I haven't had my ears pierced since maybe the 80s or even the 70s. So I remember it being your ear being numbed with something and then it being shot through with a gun. So
that's what I
now
had.
there is no pain like thing, and this woman uses a cannula, and she literally
Mhm.
just puts a needle through your ear. Ow! It didn't hurt for long, but there was no like, no like, yeah, it didn't get lollipop afterwards for being good, not crying either. But yeah, so titanium stars I've got in my ears now, so it's just very good.
Ooh, love
Yay!
that.
This is the first step towards the tattoo.
Yes, I've been trying to convince you to get a tattoo for years,
I
haven't
know,
I?
I am convinced. I just need to design it. So
Yeah.
anyway. Right, exciting questions though we've got this week.
Yes, we had lots of
Talking,
questions on Instagram.
and what was your theory about how I got questions this time?
Oh, asking at midnight was the question. So people that can't sleep will just ask us questions.
Yeah,
Or maybe people with small babies that are awake in the wee hours of the
yeah,
morning.
absolutely. Well, I know one of those persons has got a small baby, so
Yes. So the first one I'm going to ask you is from Emma Tindley. She's a dress designer, and she has said, "Is that Emma singing on the intro song?"
no, no. Honestly, I don't feel like we'd have had any listeners whatsoever if I sang on the podcast. That is my baby. It's
You
Georgia.
have sang on the podcast before. You sang William
Um,
It Was Really Be Nothing by the Smiths.
yeah, that's as good as my William. No, that's as good as my singing gets. So no, the intro song is by my daughter Georgia Meek, who is currently working on her album in LA. Oh my God. And literally
I
living her best
know.
life and actually saying to me, I don't want to come home. And I'm like, very dare you go to LA without me. And she's been to really cool places like the Viper Room and things,
Mm.
where like River Phoenix died outside it and things like that.
Oh, is that where Phoenix died? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
been watching along and just enjoying living through her,
yes.
having the best time.
And she's also, talking of like Nautier sleeves, she's also got a bunch of Nautier originals and like custom pieces, so that every time she's creating content out there, we're also weaving the kind of like flag for Nautier, for Ben and Adrian, and the kind of, individual, kind of cool, like sort of rock star pieces they've made her to take on this. So yeah, she gets kind of, and one of the girls that she was working with who wrote Wrecking Ball for Miley
Ooh,
really loved the t-shirt that they'd customized. So Georgia's like thinking that they should send her one.
Ooh,
So
that
yeah,
sounds good.
I know. Imagine hanging with
Amazing.
the person that like wrote Wrecking Ball.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
she went to
exciting.
another
I
thing
do-
as well. When then like she was also like another writer that she was on another writing camp with. Also wrote "If I Was a Boy." That
Oh, cool.
I know.
Beyonce.
Yeah,
Is it
cool.
Beyonce? Yeah.
I think so.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Just to say as well, the song at the intro is called Yellow, and it's about yellow shoes. And we had that made for a video that we made. Do you remember, with all the shoes, like the Footloose intro?
yeah.
We all had different yellow shoes on, and we all danced about outside the chapel.
Yes.
So I'm going to share that in the show notes. Oh,
Yes, it was a really good fun thing to do. And also I would
yeah.
say that this, like any parents of arty kids as well, the reason why we've got quite a lot of Georgia's original content is like she has been a struggling artist for years, as all artists are. Um,
Hmm.
so every time she needed some money, I was like, can you create me some music then? So I'm hoping that would be yeah. But I actually was at the gig I went to last night at the Wedgwood Rooms. There, the first support guy on there had like 23 monthly listeners on Spotify. So I feel like
Oh,
we may have even got more than 23 monthly listeners on Spotify. So
yeah.
what I'm saying, it takes a long time for these musicians and artists to reach an audience. So yeah,
Mm.
it's been great to support Georgia doing that, but it also means we do have really cool original music.
Yep,
which
we do.
technically we own because we paid for it.
Yep.
So,
I love it, and I think it kind of is like, it shows the attitude of Miss Bush, which is really cool. The intro.
So not Donald Trump at all. I'm actually quite radical. Yeah.
Okay, right. Next question. This is from a bride, and she said, "How can bridal shops help a bride find their dress if they have no idea what they like?"
Oh, I love this. This is, I mean, I literally, you put the clock on now because this is going to go on somewhat. So,
This might be our only question.
I know, right? So basically, what we do before a bride comes in is we have the quiz that you devised a few years ago. I think it was during COVID, wasn't it, or like COVID era?
Yep.
To help be really focused. So what the quiz does is tell me lots of things about a person, and it also enables me to read between the lines, because what I don't really want to know is, before they come in, is what they want to wear as a wedding dress. I want to know who they're marrying, where they've chosen to get married, some kind of like clues about what they do for a job, what they like to do for fun, what they wear on date nights, all sorts of things, any worries, any hang-ups, so that I can sort of do almost like a bit of a psychological profile in my own head. Ideally, if there's a Pinterest board as well, I always find that very illuminating. Not so much quite often of what the actual physical dresses are, but even the style of photography that has spoken to those people and how the brides look. It's a very kind of like, oh, I see how you see yourself then. You see yourself as this kind of girl. So whether that's, I've had one Pinterest board once where there was nothing but backs on there. So at no point was there a picture of a bride's face. It was all just sexy low backs. And I'm like fetishized backs. I'm like, wow, I feel like that's a really fucking weird thing to say about yourself. Do you know what I mean? It's like, my back is the most important thing I need to get out of my wedding. It's like, not your face, not your personality, not your heart, not your soul, just your back. Okay, let's see what I can work with there then. So I feel like, so the quiz, I think, is really, really important. I get a bit twitchy now if people don't fill one out, just because, like, I kind of want to even just like click through to your venues, because like if I look at a couple's venue, it just tells me so much about their shared beliefs, their shared aesthetics, their shared tastes, and all of that is going to feed into the vibe of that couple, those people, what they're going to put, you know, what I could see fitting in with that kind of taste profile. It's also really good to see if, say, somebody is getting married in a church, and I've got some information about why that church is meaningful to those people, because, you know, then the concept of tradition and faith and culture, family is so important to those people again. So you're going to kind of want to know that dress is probably going to have to be a bit more respectful of those cultural traditions. So that's really important. What people wear on a date night, you look at them, all the shops that they shop in for their normal clothes, is very telling. And I've also found some very cool obscure brands that way, and I'm like, oh, never heard of that, but you like spend, add to cart. So yeah, that's kind of really, it's very good. What people do for a job, that can quite often tell me if I'm looking at someone. This sounds bad. I think I've got a bit of a radar for this though now. You know, quite a neurotypical job. So if someone's a big overachiever that's got a city job and things like that, you tend to find that they're not necessarily going to be as creative or expressive in their clothing choices as someone that maybe works in arts or culture. So, and also, interestingly, people that work, say, like with horses, dogs, gyms, people that wear lycra and filth all the time might want to dress up a little bit more. So there's all sorts of like sort of narrative bits of information I've got. So what I don't need to know from that person before they come in necessarily is what kind of wedding dress they think they want. It's also very useful at that point to know any anxieties, hang-ups, body issues, which we all know we shouldn't have. We should all be fully body positive and inclusive. But it's really helpful for me to understand, because particularly when I see young brides, so in their 20s and 30s, I'm like, I'd like to take myself back to that age and be like, stop worrying. You're actually like fit, healthy, strong, beautiful, great skin, all those kind of things. Whereas I just focused on what was wrong. So it's a very sort of like important for me to sort of like try and understand what somebody finds complex about their body or their relationship to it, or even the relationship between themselves, who's coming with them to the appointment, and their body. As somebody said to me yesterday, that she went to a wedding dress appointment with her mum, and her mum like poked her in the stomach and went, that's where you carry your fat.
Oh my God.
Out loud in a
Wow.
wedding dress appointment. And I was like,
Thanks, Mum.
I think I would have had to do my kind of like my allyship there and step up and say something, and I have done that. So I think so for me. So the original question was, how do we help someone that doesn't know? So I think I need a rounded idea of that person before they come in, because
Yeah.
I feel that gives me some cultural notes and some, I also think it's really good to be really frank about money as well. I've done some really great appointments and have put people in things I really think that they should have bought. But like a made to measure Suzanne Neville now is like, it's touching 5,000-6,000, and it's like, that's a lot of money. And if people are not comfortable with that, I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable by suggesting that's the best way forward. So I think that this is really good. Also, it's quite useful for me to know about someone's sexuality. I did an appointment the other day, and someone had in their quiz had written fiance with 2 E, so I thought she was marrying a girl. It turned out she was marrying a boy, and she just spelled fiance wrong. I'd been doing the sort of like,
And how do you think that helps? How would that help, do you think?
What, knowing people's sexuality? Well, firstly, being super sensitive about it and not assuming that someone's, marrying a boy or they're heterosexual or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. I mean, I think we do that anyway, but it's quite nice to not have to just tiptoe around the word partner until someone confirms a gender. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's quite useful to know. It's also quite useful to know, particularly with girls, is what the expectation is, what their fiance to ease is going to be wearing, what their wife to be wants to look like, how if I can get an intermediary to show me what like
I guess if they're both going to be wearing a dress, you don't want them to be the same, do you? You don't want to accidentally put them in the same dress as their fiance.
Yeah, and I also have got like, I think that whenever you've seen any, like on Vogue weddings, for example, there was a really brilliant wedding, one of those really rich American couples, 2 girls get married in Europe somewhere. I mean, they were so matching. It was so fabulous. But they were so equally sized and so cool and so fashiony. So in my mind, I also don't want to be the person that fetishizes 2 hot girls getting married who are both really into fashion. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's not, we don't fetishize grooms like that. So why should I fetishize another wife like that? Do you know what I mean? Or like or another bride like that. So it's so I think it's really helpful to get, so I can get that context as well. So so what it means is when you start the appointment and the person walks into you, you're like, great, I know quite a lot about you, and I've had some thoughts before you've got here. And it helps me to kind of like refine a search, I think, before we start, and to really speak to someone as a person, a human to human level, without being like, you're a body that needs some hard to wear clothes put on it. And I think that's really important. So I think that is but it's getting to the point where I feel slightly stabby now if someone hasn't done a quiz. People are like,
I know.
Should I just have a look around? It's like, no, just have a look around. Can you just tell me where you're getting married first? you know, and like the month, the season. Do you know what I mean? What do you do for a job? And it seems really annoying, but this information goes nowhere. We shred it afterwards. It's not, you know, we're very, very mindful of GDPR. We're not going to share that information with anyone, but it does.
No.
It really helps me help you. I mean, and also then it means that we can hit the ground running, getting straight into clothes, and you get more time in clothes than you do just either browsing or something like that. So yeah, I think that really helps us, definitely.
Yeah.
And even if I'm like really running late with brides on a Saturday and I literally have got 1 minute to read over a quiz, normally I read all of them ahead of going into work on a Saturday or whatever day to make sure I know who I've got. And also, in case I needed to think about anything or contact that person beforehand, if they tell me that they've got like, you know, a 500 quid budget, I can then say, like, I don't think this is the right place for you. Or if they give me a Pinterest board full of stuff that we don't do, I can be like, you're going to spend money coming here. So do you want to just double check that you want to be here before we come in? And it's all very awkward. So I think that's really good to be able to get that kind of intel first. But yeah, as I say, even if I just have a minute to read something, I can just absorb that information so fast and be like, right, glance at a Pinterest board. I know the venue. I know this, that, and the other. That's still better for me than. But as I say, I normally research quite hard.
In a nutshell, the answer is you help a bride to find the dress by getting to know her as much as humanly possible. That's the answer.
Yes. So we can be like, say, like someone. I saw there was an awards thing or a dinner in Hollywood, and I was just looking at that on Instagram this morning. And Samantha McMillan is a stylist that I really like, and she dresses Elle and Dakota Fanning, and it was a really great outfit. And I was like, yeah, of course it is, because she just gets that person's style and can deliver it really well, like, you know, like a Harry Lambert, Harry Styles combo.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm not saying I would, you know, make myself like be what's it? I don't compare myself to Harry Lambert, but you know, it's as much about being a stylist as trying to get to know what's amazing about your client and really highlighting that. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So you're becoming a stylist for every bride that comes in. You're becoming her stylist for her wedding. So if you are a bride and you're booking an appointment and you see the quiz, it's not just as being nosy, like, and it is because Emma's so dedicated to getting to know you and finding out what you like. Like that's why the quiz is happening.
Yeah.
But the second part of the question for the bride, that sent that question in, she said part 2, equally, how can a bridal shop help a bride who knows exactly what they want but can't find it?
All right. So this is a bit of a two-parter. So there is one worrying thing about this, and sometimes I've experienced this a few times. If something doesn't exist, there might be a very good reason why it doesn't exist. Like it might be horrible. So this is like that's quite brutal, but I'm just going to go brutal on this. A few times a year, maybe not as much as that, maybe once a year, we'll have someone who thinks they can't find what they want and they go and ask a dressmaker to make it. And it can be a slightly ghastly hybrid of everything people liked in a dress put on one dress. And it really doesn't work. So you're like, yeah, there's a good reason why that didn't exist. So it was too many thoughts of too many things in the one dress. And it's not unknown for me to have someone arrive quite tearful, like with quite a short amount of time to go to their wedding going, I made a huge mistake. Can I have the dress I tried on here? Which, yeah, luckily we can usually do that. So I think that's one thing is like, if you can't find what you want, what we've got to do is break that down. You've got a clear idea. So if you, the other day I had a dress on someone and she's like, can I have these big puffy sleeves and this bow and this and this, and I was like, something has got to go here. Like it's you're going to look like a sort of like weird sort of Barbara Cartland reboot. There's too much stuff. You can't have it all.
What's that quote about? If you're not sure about your outfit, take one thing off. I can't remember who it was. Chanel or something.
Chanel or something. It's like take off the last thing you put on. Yeah. So and
So
people are like, can I have a bow, puff sleeves, a hairband, white heart-shaped sunglasses, and a bow to go in the back of my hair as well? I'm like, Just no,
No.
not all of those things all at the same time. No, and a family tiara. So we got to work out so whether or not the thing doesn't exist because it shouldn't. And also when we're doing special designs in in chapel, I'm always a bit like, well, if you think about, I think I've ever done this Lego and Duplo thing on here before. If you think about
Yep.
what so you can't mix your Lego and your Duplo up, basically. So you just, as long as you're mixing and matching within the same brand, you should get quite a happy result. So I would say, so if you know exactly what you want and it should be possible to exist. I think it was, firstly, it goes back to that kind of like being able to define exactly what it is you want. And that's learning how to speak wedding dress, learning about the terminology, defining what it is that you have found, like what aspect of one dress made you feel really good, what aspect of another dress didn't make you feel so good. So like I will sometimes have a bit of an ideological battle on my hands when I think someone needs a Suzanne Neville base dress, but in their mind they'd seen themselves as cooler and trendier than that. And I'm like, well, I can make it cooler and trendier, but we might have to go for just a core dress of one thing and then some additional pieces. It's kind of hard sometimes for people to have the faith about looking at a dress and being like, oh, it's sleeveless, but I can add the sleeves, or I can take the sleeves away, or I can make the back different, or I can make the front different, or we can, like change quite a lot of things about dresses, change fabrics. If what you're absolutely looking for doesn't exist. I would say one of the phenomena that I have got, I've noticed a couple of times for people, is people loving Madrid-based couturiers that don't wholesale, that are not available to buy in the UK, and people are going around looking for this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's really easy to say why this doesn't exist in the UK is because no one would wear it, and therefore it's commercially not viable to put those things on the shelf. I would actually have to think about which designers they are, but they're always incredibly covered. They've usually got really diverse, interesting fabric choices, very formal, very not mass market. And I mean, I think probably it would be hard to emulate that look because it's so very different from what would be in British bridal shops, and I'm even talking even the coolest British bridal shops, bearing in mind that I struggle to sell Sophia Volar with her unwasted looks. Like some trends are very regional to a specific place, and it's a bit like when you go to like the big trade show in Barcelona, and you can see like Turkish brands there. They've got wedding dresses that must weigh about 25 kilos at least. That absolutely couldn't get another jewel on them. So if that was what you were looking for in the UK, you'd be really hard pushed to find it because it's culturally not what we choose. So I guess I think what would have to happen about this, you really can't find something you're looking for. It could be that it's too cool for the British market, too embellished for the British market. It could be that you can't quite define what it is that you're looking for, or occasionally sometimes it can be something from a previous collection that is not available to try on anymore. So I think it's usually, I would say that I'm pretty good at that geeking around. I can usually identify what it is that's needed, but I can see why sometimes things aren't available. But that's quite, is that enough of an answer to that, do you think?
I think so, yeah. It also made me think about, how sometimes brides might think they want something, but actually they're completely wrong about it. Like sometimes you said the brides, they'll just put, oh, I want a boho wedding dress, and they come in and it's just not, that's not what they want
Yeah, I
at
have to
all.
say, I do feel like that boho is one of those phrases or one of those adjectives about wedding dresses. Do you remember when it used to be, people used to say vintage as well, and vintage was followed by bohemian. I don't hear the word bohemian so much anymore, but people would come and go, "I'm just really bohemian." I'm like, no, you aren't. But okay. But what you're basically saying is when somebody was telling me they were bohemian, basically what they wanted to say is, I'm not a chav. So it's like, so because I think people's language is very limited with how to describe wedding dresses and what they're after, and those kind of loaded sort of cultural insults really are not that helpful, really. And
Yeah.
it's a bit like, I honestly can't believe that I still hear the word meringue as well. I'm like,
Really?
oh, the meringue. I've been hearing that for 30 years. It's like, maybe that should be, should be like subtitle for the podcast. This must be a lovely job. Oh, I don't want some meringue.
Do you want a meringue?
Don't want a meringue.
That's the mums. I'm sure that's the mums saying that.
I don't know. Honestly, the meringue thing is like,
What's wrong with meringues? I live in meringue.
I love a meringue, yeah. But I also, bearing in mind that actual phrase came from Four Weddings and a Funeral back in, when did that film come out? 1993. Oh, Scarlett, she looks like a big meringue. I mean, those dresses were horrible in that film. If you revisit them, they were horrible Birkentex dresses with nasty stuff all over them, So there isn't, but I think volume in a skirt is one of the coolest things you can possibly wear. And like, the more the better, frankly.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of
when
balance.
in your life do you ever get to wear such a big dress? Never.
I do.
Oh, you probably do. Yeah, most people. Most people.
Simply make me a really big dress. I think it's one of those things that, again, maybe asking for what you want or not being able to find what you want, maybe it can be quite intimidating or something. But I think it's like, it's defining it. And if you can define what you want and it doesn't exist, then we need to have a conversation. Somebody needs to give me the brief for that, and I'll look at it and be like, do you know why it doesn't exist? Because it shouldn't. Or it'd be like,
Well, that could be an opportunity for, we do the closed off appointment where they could just come and have a chat with you. Like, they're not trying anything on, they're just coming and telling you what they want. That's probably a good chance to do that.
Yeah. And I've taken I've taken orders and deposits and things, but people haven't tried a single dress on ever. It's kind of weird, which I think people find weird about shops. And like, sometimes, particularly, do you remember like when we were discussing Hannah the Fat Bride on TikTok?
Yes. That's not us insulting her or anything. That's what her handle is.
That's her name is,
yes.
Has she got married yet?
Don't know. I've stopped looking.
Oh, yeah, it's a bit quite triggering. But there was a number of people on that, some of her comments saying that they didn't want to have the wedding dress, like they didn't want to try on dresses, so they just went straight to a dressmaker. And I would say that the other thing as well is with dressmakers, and when we do our glossary, this should go into our glossary. There's a really big difference between designers, pattern cutters, and dressmakers. So if you go to a dressmaker, their sewing skills could be absolutely sublime, but their design skills negligible, and their pattern cutting, that's a dark art to have a pattern cut well. So I have seen some embryonic young labels where they maybe have two of those skills but not all three. So if you come to someone like us, and I'm not saying I can do any of those things, but the brands that we have got all of those things ticked. So they've got incredible seamstresses, their design is cool, but their pattern cutting is phenomenal. And that sort of gives me the chance to harness that for a bride without having that slightly worrying thing of like, I'm going to go to a dressmaker. And this, I don't want to slur dressmakers because they're like literally so absolutely fundamental and invaluable to our thing. But I know that I know some dressmakers that don't like to see clients. I know some dressmakers that don't like to cut pans. I know when we've had teams of dressmakers, I know some are good at beading, some are good at this dress. I even know that Suzanne Neville's got certain seamstresses she gives certain dresses to because that's what they excel at. Sewing satin on the bias, I mean, that's a dark art, that, to not make that look wrinkly. So again, I would say like that, I have seen that solution of I can't find what I want, so going to a dressmaker sometimes fills me with a little bit of fear.
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, like people doing a website when like one of those GoDaddy ones or something, you're like, no, don't. They're not specialist enough. You don't need that.
Yes. Yeah, it's the same. Like if you go to like kind of a blokey web designer and they can do all the technical stuff for you, but if you're like a bridal business, they might not be able to speak the language. They'll design it in the same way. They're not designers, they're developers, so they can't get all of the the right elements. But
yeah, I mean, you did have to basically parachute in, like, I don't know how many years, 10, 12 years ago, and save us from blokey web developers.
yeah, and you're not the only one. There's been so many people, they've been like, I've had this website made, yes, it works, but it's not right, because they don't have that knowledge of the industry.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing, I guess. But yeah, we've got time for one more question, and it's a fun one. And this is from another bride, and she wants to know, which iconic wedding dresses would you change, and how, why, and what would you do to them?
I did do a tiny bit of prep on this, and no, so I've got some sensible answers to this. So I like Meghan Markle.
Mhm.
So dress is pretty iconic. Didn't fit very well. I feel like it could have been fitted better. So
Mhm.
if I had to go back and change that, I would have been like, I see where you're going with this, but could it fit a little better? Could it be either more fitted, more tailored to your body, or could it be a bit bigger? You know, it's like, well, I
Mm.
felt it fell between, it was very much, I actually was asked prior to her wedding by Annabelle at Love My Dress what my predictions were, and I had put her down as having either the Miss Bush pearl anniversary dress look,
Mhm.
or a dress from Suzanne Neville called Geddes, which was again a high-necked crepe, long-sleeved, very plain. So
Mm.
effectively, I think she would have been better in either of those, because they were exactly the same look, boat neck, long sleeve, but
Yep.
one was a mite bigger and one was a mite slimmer.
Yep.
And I have a little conspiracy theory about this, and I have no idea if this is true, but I've actually found myself Googling Kevlar vests, because I think that would have been quite a big assassination risk going through the park. I've just
Mm.
started watching Day of the Jackal. Have you watched it with Eddie Redmayne?
No, it's on my list.
Okay.
You're not the
So
first person to tell me to watch
so
it.
I want his like house in Cadiz. I think that like it's like my dream house. Um but also like in that they can snipe someone from about 3.5 kilometers away. So I was thinking that if you were riding through like Windsor Great Park in an open carriage, like we all know that even though those people look very ceremonial behind them, they're sort of close protection officers, so
Mm.
they're fully tooled up with guns and ammo. So I suspect if you're getting married in a military uniform, it's got some level of body armor underneath
Mhm.
it. Um, and I would have thought that maybe she might have had to have a lightweight Kevlar vest underneath it,
Sewn into her
just
dress. Oh my
thrown
gosh.
into it. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's very, like, there's quite a target. And also, if you
It's
think about,
scary.
like, Kate Middleton and all that, like the royal weddings, which are around Whitehall and at Westminster, that is a very high security area that you could
Mm.
sweep completely beforehand and you know, there's always a bit of a ring of steel around that because it's right next to the Houses of Parliament. So I think that
Mm.
was possibly one of the reasons. I love that as a
Okay.
conspiracy. If I
I
could just
love
drop
that
that.
this is gone into conspiracy theories right now.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that they
Okay.
had to, but yeah, they had to put some body armor underneath it.
Oh,
But
and
yeah,
can I just say, talking about things we're watching, I just finished watching Nobody Wants This on Netflix. Have you watched that?
no,
So it's got Kristen Bell and Adam Brody in it, and she's got a podcast with her sister, and it made me think of us.
okay,
And he's a Jewish guy that she kind of falls in love with, and it's really lovely, really cute, and I feel like you would like it.
okay. Well, noted. I will get onto that when I've got a couple
And
of
I feel like
episodes left of Jackal
the
left.
listeners would like it too. I think 'cause it's very sweet. It's lovely.
Oh, that was good. Can I just also say I know the person that asked the question on this as well. And I'm not mentioning her name again because she seems to come up every podcast.
I
But
know.
anyway, she really
You know,
does.
is she going to come on the podcast? She might as
I don't
well.
know. Like literally, I feel like I've seen a few people like on Instagram recently, and like somebody came up, Fifi Green. She was like, "Oh, 7 years. That's since I got married." I'm like, 7 years. Oh my God, how long is it? 7 years. So I think it's really sweet to kind of like, I don't unfollow any brides after they've got
No.
married and they're going through very different phases of their lives. But I love it when it gets to anniversary time and I'm like, I can't believe I dressed that person that long ago. And
Mhm.
also, for any listeners out there, I also really stand by their dress choices. I still think
Yep.
they look really good. So I would always say to people when they ask me, and I said it yesterday, but will it date? I'm like, go back to the beginning of our Instagram feed and have a look at what I put people, and then you can see some seasonal differences and some little trends come and go and ebb and flow. I stand by those dresses. I think we always have that classicism in. And also, just to say, talking of iconic wedding dresses, she has also provoked someone to come over from North Carolina to get that dress as well.
Wow.
So,
okay, right, we're at 50 minutes, so let's try and squeeze in a couple more iconic wedding dresses and what you change.
Okay. So Kate Middleton's bust points were too pointy on her dress. I feel like she should have had her seams and darts done differently over her boobs. So whenever I look at the pictures, I'm like, why has she got that really hard, pointy, like shell thing? And then talking about boobs, Serena Williams' wedding dress and the fit on her boobs, really bad, really, really bad. And just sticking with the sort of royal and iconic, Pippa Middleton's one, very athletic figure. And I feel like I think she had the Meghan thing. I think it ought to have been straighter, or it should have been fuller, because I think what I notice with quite a lot of really sporty girls that I do, they're like so fabulous in their pants and their like core is so strong. There is none of that hip curve that the rest of us unsporty girls have. And it's wrong, and it shouldn't be the case, but we're still looking to get that proportion of snatched waist and a bit of a curve out to the hip. And I think sometimes when you don't see that little curve one way or another, you end up looking extremely long-waisted, and very long through the body, and looking like you've got quite short legs. I feel like that's so catty. But the other thing that I don't mean, I think she's absolutely beautiful, and I loved her polo neck wedding dress, and I loved the little cap sleeves. Everything about it was great. But I would have, as I was asked, I'd probably have put a waist seam in it, or made it a little bit more fitted. But one of the things I just thought, let me just put this into Google. I thought one of the outstandingly overriding things when you think about iconic brides is they should have changed their husband. I was looking at, and also like just that revisionist kind of like with a view looking backwards. You're like, Princess Diana, pretty iconic, probably shouldn't marry Charles. And how young was she? 19. Priscilla Presley, 16. These are some of the most iconic brides. I think would be like, their husbands would be subject to a bit of an Operation Tree investigation now. So I think as well, I think that one of the things I see when you look at particular iconic brides, even down to say someone like Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, it's like, I think the clue was in the Kennedy, don't marry one. Do you know? It's like this I feel they sit within our psyche, but actually quite often, like underneath those things, the things I would change would be culture, society, the man. But generally, like, fit is definitely my key thing on that. I think people chose things that were perfectly beautiful and very much them. But I don't think you can underestimate like getting that cut right and getting that fit right in a dress. That's the thing that makes things classic and really timeless.
Okay, good answer. Love it.
Thank you.
Okay, and that brings it in at 53 minutes.
Oh, we're slightly sneaking over. Well, let's hurriedly say goodbye and let everyone get on with their Monday evening.
Amazing. Okay, great. I will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
You'd like to know, wouldn't you? You'd like to know, wouldn't